Right, okay, so I've been meaning to make a video for like 6 months now, admittedly. I am the worst streamer and YouTuber on the face of this fucking planet. But I'm also probably the best one because, Byakuze, between my last video and now, I've surpassed 100 subscribers. Which is actually a huge fucking deal for me, so I want to start this video off by emphasizing just how incredibly grateful I am for your support. Yada yada yada, gay nonsense. It does genuinely make me a bit happy that anyone out there is interested in what I have to say and do on the internet. But okay, now with that out of the way, let's just get right to the schedule. 10 or 15 minutes of fucking rope fuel. Okay, let's start the video. Okay, I'm not a big risk taker. Okay, I'm just not. Streaming is probably the biggest gamble I've ever taken, you know? Because I'm like putting a public profile out there with an identifiable voice, a very identifiable fucking accent, a strong personality, and quite specific interests, okay? Never mind the fact that my OPSEC is absolute trash, but today, I want to take a huge risk and talk about the things I've been weighing quite heavily on my ThinkPad lately. I do risk being called a bit of a sellout or hypocrite here, considering I have openly mocked people in my previous video, for example, who weaponized sob stories for clicks. But consider two things. First, I will probably never be able to monetize this channel, nor will I want to if I end up being eligible, which will never fucking happen. Second, it's not like I'm leaving you empty-handed, okay? You ungrateful fucks. I've actually cobbled together a script this time with a section dedicated to quote-unquote practical, meaningful advice that might help you in some small way. I don't know. I'm not trying to sell you a course, nor am I here to give you useless reductive advice like phone bad or go gym. I'm simply sharing what I've learned and practiced on a daily basis that keeps me from blowing a hole through my fucking horned head. It's not a credible fucking threat, by the way. It's not a credible fucking suicide threat. Speaking of risks, the first thing I want to talk about are the risks I never took. You know, the ones I never even fucking got the chance to take. Being a victim of a modern age means that every time you feel like you're trying to finally achieve some upward trajectory in life, the rug is violently pulled out from under your feet by a local, God forbid, global catastrophe. The imaginary currency numbers skyrocket and plummet ad infinitum like a conductor dramatically waving his hand to guide a grand orchestra. Except it's not an orchestra, it's just a bunch of unqualified, foaming them out the adrenochrome snorting psychopaths hurling the instruments at one another. And not even in a fucking comedic way. It's just sad. My childhood and young adult life have not escaped unscathed from the endless parade of crises that have defined the past quarter century. To further understand my aversion to risk, you have to only look at how I grew up, okay? Solidly lower middle class and only grub to a mom and dad lose sight, neither of whom went to college. The cultural narrative fed to me during my youth, repeated verbatim like a holy mantra: study hard, go to college for a sensible degree, get a job, honor your father and mother, and it will all work out, was only elevated by my socioeconomic status. Therefore, I have had a single hyper-focused goal in life since that time. Follow this law to the absolute letter, and life for you and your loved ones will be great, safe, stable, and secure. Stability was, after all, and still is, one of the absolute greatest important things to me. Fast forward to young adulthood, I followed the law to the letter. I got the top marks, earned the degree, and I'm currently sitting pretty with an office job in tech. And yet, why do I wake up feeling like the world is fucking ending? I took zero risks, I played it completely safe, and it still wasn't enough. Which brings us to the deeper cost of not taking risks. My first year of college ended triumphantly, straight A's, a promising future, then the pandemic struck. The next 2 years were irreparably marred by the outbreak, and the fledgling social life I had barely begun to build took such a catastrophic blow that to this day I haven't stopped regretting what I left undone. I grew up entirely too fast. The crushing burden of sticking to the plan, of forcing myself to be an academic weapon while simultaneously managing undiagnosed autism on top of it all, was quite frankly simply too much for a child, a teenager, and a college freshman to bear. I didn't realize it then, but I was actively shooting myself in the foot every single day I clung to that rigid path. Every night I stayed up late studying things I didn't care about, instead of making connections, meeting people, picking up a sport, or pouring myself into a passion project. I either stayed inside because of the pandemic, or stayed inside because of my damn nature. That's not hard to say. I had, zero achievements. I made a few friends. I participated in college leadership, but the emotionally stunted child I was then continues to be the stunted adult I am now. I have no memories of drunk walks back home, no messy breakups where I cried with girlfriends over a tub of ice cream, no running through the streets until sunrise without a care in the world. It's fascinating and kind of painful that I deeply envy the woman who actually got to experience that. It's strange because I don't even particularly care for the typical mainstream activities of the Stacy and her Chad, yet I find myself consumed by the profound fear of having missed out. Perhaps a happy medium could have been struck for an autistic introvert like myself. Instead of getting wasted, we could have gotten sugar high on candy and energy drinks with friends. Instead of taking a ride on the cock carousel, I could have at least risked a blind date or two. All the could-haves in the world if I had just been a little more adventurous, but honestly, it all might have been for naught anyway, courtesy of the pandemic. But look, we can't use COVID as an excuse forever, so let's take a look at the current landscape. Well, fuck. AI is here and is clearly here to stay, so yeah, okay, remember that foundational plan that we were all meticulously indoctrinated to follow from birth? Yeah, fuck you if you followed it. And you're an absolute retard if you believed in it. What's that? Your family and your friends and the entire overarching culture praised the plan as your golden ticket for a stable future? Too bad, you probably should just kill yourself, or I don't know, become a plumber or electrician. I digress, and obviously I'm exaggerating for comedic effect this time. But seriously, what risks are you supposed to take when we live in an era when tomorrow is never guaranteed to look like today? Things are advancing at the blink of a fucking eye. Thousands of livelihoods are actively being threatened, and the elites in charge are more than happy to smugly remind you of your wasted effort in their dying system. Is it better to just adopt a fuck it we ball attitude and take whatever reckless risks you want, knowing tomorrow might never come? Or are you like me? Paralyzed with fear, completely unsure what to do with yourself or your timeline, entirely unable to even visualize the future to begin with? Let's go back to that part about growing up too fast. My pipeline was completely linear. Childhood, school, college, corporate desk. No gap years, and school holidays were spent in mostly indolence and near total solitude. Sure, I had acquaintances, but who among us can honestly look back at high school and say it was a good experience? If the portrait I've painted for you isn't vivid enough yet, let me fucking spell it out. I was an undiagnosed nerdy girl who drew stupid anime pictures constantly, had exactly one best friend whom I eventually had to move away from, and could never, still can't, fully connect with people on a normal level. High school was essentially torture simulated to Electric Boogaloo. So I essentially speedran the plan. I couldn't make friends in person, so I just stayed inside, studied, and wasted hours on the internet looking for digital strangers who wouldn't hurt me. People with whom I could finally be myself. My childhood memories exist, sure. But those core milestones that most young women look back on with warmth, I just don't have them. The mall trips with the girls, carelessly swiping mom's credit card? No way, too poor and entirely too alone. Sneaking out, getting drunk, smoking cigarettes, kissing boys? Not at all. I was a fiercely good child, I loathed smoke, and frankly, the male gender terrified me. Instead, the internal programming dictated, get the highest marks to secure the highest paying job. And I hit the nail right on the head. Full marks, firm handshake from the CEO. But at what cost? I'm here now, and it sucks. The volatile day-to-day uncertainty of my job, my friends' jobs, and the unraveling state of the world is a heavy thing to live with. Additionally, I live in a country burdened with a near 40% unemployment rate, so you can easily imagine how fucking terrified I am. A lifelong blueprint that explicitly promised me stability, my highest priority in existence, has delivered nothing but deep-set anxiety. That isn't to say I hate everything about the modern age. The sheer accessibility of human knowledge at our fingertips is stunning. Anyone can learn fucking anything. Donating to a vital cause takes a single click. Medical professionals are using advanced machine learning techniques to diagnose fatal illnesses decades before they even manifest. The internet has evolved from a niche tech project into a tool where a single job application can permanently rewrite a family's socio-economic trajectory. And I think that is one of the most beautiful fucking things in the world. But returning to AI in this hyper-accelerated digital landscape, if you've ever played the game Hypnospace Outlaw, you'll know its core theme is the aggressive corporatization and sanitization of the internet. The hyper-availability that I mentioned before thus comes at a steep price. It comes at the cost of detached suits making foundational tech decisions they are utterly unqualified to make, shouting over and legislating against the very tech-savvy autists who built this sandbox since 1989. It comes at the expense of rampant misinformation, engineered propaganda, non-stop adware, real-world psychological harm, and the systematic death of privacy. It comes with the realization that the internet I grew up with, the one I ran to for sanctuary as a young autistic girl wanting to escape reality, has been strip-mined of all its creativity, relatability, and connection. Human connection was deprioritized the second it conflicted with profit. And that's exactly where we find ourselves with AI. I'm sitting as a young adult in corporate looking at the influx of AI tools at my disposal, and it's the exact same script playing out all over again. Again, our digital refuge is being handed over to C-suite managers who couldn't write a single line of code to save their lives. And we, the youth, have not reaped any substantial financial, physical, or cultural dividends from this breakthrough. Unless, of course, you want to count the endless parade of LinkedIn grifters trying to sell you courses and life hacks. Instead, we've been violently thrown backward into Cold War levels of systemic paranoia and anticipatory anxiety. Will the bubble pop? Will someone finally press the button? Here come the fucking nukes! What does AI have to do with me personally? Well, I'll save the existential dread of watching the very digital landscape I use as a shield against the world being actively optimized to make my own job redundant for another video. More broadly, the advent of generative artificial intelligence marks just another milestone snatched away from my grasp. My mindset used to be, okay, college wasn't a cinematic experience, but, I'll graduate, secure a great career, and finally live it up. My early 20s, here I fucking come. Well, fuck, here we are, and I'm quietly terrified out of my mind. Still drowning in FOMO, still feeling fundamentally behind, still struggling to socialize in a world where it's becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish what's real from what's artificial. My social skills have objectively improved, as does my confidence in my ability to mask and converse with normies and neurotypicals without wanting to bash my fucking skull against the wall, for the first 15 minutes at least. But now, instead of a global health crisis forcing me indoors, it's my own depression, induced from the sheer exhaustion of having to keep up with it all. It leaves me paralyzed, drained and completely demotivated to use any of the tools I fought so hard to build. I am terrified that because I had to grow up so fast, I missed the window entirely. I skipped the formative, messy, beautiful social stages of youth, and woke up straight into being a rigid, career-focused adult. So what now? Well, let's rephrase that. What can actually be done about it? This is the part of the video where I share the practical framework I use in my own daily life to manage this cocktail of issues. The relentless uncertainty of current year, the haunting regret of a sheltered youth, the soft skills required to make yourself a little less replaceable, and the core fundamentals that can anchor you, whether you fully relate to my situation and personality or not. How do we actually survive these unprecedented times? Well, I'm not just going to sit here and tell you that it's easy. People have been stranded without work since 2020, and the AI boom has only worsened the bleeding. I'm not going to smugly tell you that I have all the answers, or tell you to just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and buy a prompt engineering course. But I will tell you this, one is better than none. 1 minute of effort is infinitely better than 0. Something will always triumph over nothing. It's about microdosing little fragments of hope, wherever you may find them. Before we proceed, I have a bit of a disclaimer. I am fully aware of the huge amounts of copium I am huffing here. I know that running through an Anki flashcard deck for 10 minutes is not a clean substitute for a missed adolescence. Spending my early 20s pottering around in my apartment and gaily appreciating the little things isn't going to magically and retroactively grant me the teenage heartbreak I feel like I was robbed of. But it's not about fixing the past. It's done. No matter how much we want to dwell on it, no matter how much it fucking hurts. It's about learning from the past. As cliche as it is, the root causes behind those missed opportunities, being paranoia, anxiety, and dependence. I don't want to put a plaster on your psychological wounds, or band-aid for you Americans. I want to empower you to exist on your own terms, and to walk on your own 2 feet again. So tip number 1 is start small, right? Identify things you want to explore. Think of them as side quests to inject interest into the tedious main storyline of your life, whether that main quest be school, a corporate job, or overall 9-to-5 obligations. Choose a side quest and set a realistic goal. The realism is the non-negotiable part. Trying to completely reinvent your entire identity in 6 months out of fear and frustration for the future, pivoting careers overnight, or fleeing the country are all gargantuan goals. While romantic, they're almost guaranteed to end in catastrophic burnout. If you're autistic or introverted like me, I absolutely do not recommend this, no matter how much of a panic mode you may find yourself in. If you are some hyper-ambitious, passion-fueled, extroverted rockstar, then by all means go save the fucking world. But for the anxious, frustrated, lonely person who just wants to do something, fucking anything, to shift their situation and feel less trapped, we have to start small. Tiny, reasonable adjustments help us gradually, safely reclaim ownership of our lives. It begins with just a few minutes a day. I picked up some low-stakes, low-barrier habits that result in tangible, actual value at the end of the day. It's vital that the habit produces some sort of physical or visible result, so our dopamine-fried brains can register that we actually, got something out of the effort. The first is, I briefly touched on Anki decks. Anki is a software that you can use to download free user-generated flashcards. Spend just 10 minutes a day running through these digital flashcards on a topic that generally interests you. Topics include languages, classical art, chemistry, and more, all user-generated, not by a big corporation. It's better than Duolingo, trust me. The next is physical journaling. Keep an analog paper diary where you summarize your daily movements, no matter how banal they are, activities, accomplishments, and emotions. Keep it strictly pen and paper. No phones, no apps, no ads. And finally, something I've been getting into lately is collecting, specifically of the low-cost variety. Curating a small collection of items that are reasonably affordable or easy to source in your area. My personal recommendations include music CDs that you buy at flea markets or online, physical video games, unique smelling candles, quirky ornaments, custom keycaps, or fucking Polaroid photos with a camera that you get. Your very own museum of items that you can clean, catalog, and upkeep on a daily or weekly basis. It can become a meaningful activity for you. But at the end of the day, as my mom always says, if you do only one thing today, at least make your bed. When you are operating in pure survival mode, sometimes that's all we can fucking do. Something small is better than nothing at all. The second tip, start it alone. Learning to become deeply comfortable in your own company is one of the single greatest achievements you could attain. Why? Because you no longer have to anxiously look around the room to see if what you're doing is socially acceptable. You stop waiting for permission, or waiting for someone else to make a decision, or waiting for an invite to a party, a class, or a career pivot. Do it alone, even if your hands are shaking. Combine this independence that you build over time with your microdosing. When I first moved out and started living on my own in my own little hive, It was the small, solitary outings that slowly built the psychological fortitude I needed to eventually do bigger things like make friends, pursue relationships, and fucking even launch this YouTube channel. But I had to start small. I went to the local library for less than an hour once a week. I took a simple walk every other day for just 10 minutes. I pushed myself to compliment one stranger every fortnight. I took myself out on solo dates to cafes, museums, or movie theaters even when my friends flaked, showed up late, or ignored the invite entirely. Over time, these microscopic fractures you chip away into your comfort zone compound into massive, unfathomable leaps away from the person you used to be. Another beautiful byproduct of mastering solitude is that once you are comfortable being alone, you can become the creator of the very events you were previously denied entry from. If you never got invited to house parties, now's your chance to throw one. Armed with the independence you cultivated through this microdosing technique, you can now step up as the organizer, the planner, the person who builds the exact community you've spent a lifetime searching for. Why not randomly post on one of your favorite social media apps one day a status saying, "Movie night at my place, pull up if you want." Wait a bit, order some pizza. Whoever shows up, and if absolutely no one shows up, well, fuck it then. You now have an entire pizza order yourself. Shout out to Postman for this idea. The point is that you fucking tried. You stepped up, you took a familiar, low-stakes environment, and instead of directly cornering individuals, which sets you up for rejection and disappointment and autistic overwhelmment, you simply cast the fishing line out into the water and let the bait sit. Look, am I a popular girl with an active roster of men waiting over on Tinder? Absolutely not. Am I a glowing socialite presiding over a dozen girly group chats? Fuck no. But I am a fundamentally more confident, secure, and peaceful troll than I was a year ago, let alone 5. And that peace is what inspires me to keep making autonomous changes without waiting for the perfect alignment or external validation. I wasted my youth waiting for the other shoe to drop. I spent years waiting for the right time, waiting until I checked off every single corporate task required of me before I allowed myself to sit back, breathe, and have fun. Looking at the current state of the world, I realized a bitter truth. There is no such thing as a perfect time. So do it anyway, and do it right now. And that is the third tip. Do it small, do it alone, and do it now. The reality is we are trapped in a macroeconomic situation we cannot personally change. I could talk about the structural power of localized community organization, but again, that's a topic better left for another video. Right now, we're all just trying to keep our heads above water and not lose our fucking minds in the process. Tomorrow simply isn't guaranteed to look like today, so whatever it is you're hoarding in the back of your mind, do it now. Okay, don't go solving cancer by midnight now. What I mean is, okay, let's combine everything we've discussed, okay? Execute those small, actionable, deeply personal tasks that you want to achieve, not the ones you are required to perform. Invite constructive boredom and human curiosity back into your think pan. The minute a creative thought floats across your mind, document it. Do it the old-fashioned way. Carry a small, gay little physical notepad to write down those ideas the moment they spark. Or use a cheap tape recorder to dictate them aloud if you prefer it that way. Return to those ideas at the end of the evening when you practice step 1, doing it small, and just expand on that thought for 5 minutes. Lean into step 2, doing it alone, and intentionally pursue environments by yourself where inspiration can hit. A quiet park, a local church, a library, or the beach. Look, all of this is just a very long way of me admitting that I've been struggling lately, quite severely. I have, and it fucking sucks. It sucks to be alone in your room, looking back, mourning the alternate timelines of what your life could have been. It sucks to think that if you had just been born maybe a little earlier or a little smarter in a different location, or just a little less isolated, things might have been happier for you right now. I see videos on YouTube from 20 years ago recommended to me sometimes of these kids and young teenagers hanging out at malls with these goofy, unfiltered, pre-smartphone smiles bursting at the seams with genuine laughter. And those videos mean something to me in all sorts of words and ways I simply cannot describe but just feel. But what hurts the absolute most is bottling those feelings, what I feel, that grief inside, letting the bitterness calcify into personality and permanently settling for a jaded, cynical existence instead of fighting just a little bit to view life through a different lens. Because it's a tiring existence, and frankly, I'm quite tired of being tired. So, lately, instead of looking at what I lost, I'm trying to look at what's there. Like my cat, who's now actually opening his way through my room right now. Just earlier, his nose was pressed firmly against the window pane, licking at the condensation. A weird little creature who has sat by my side shortly after I started working and ever since, anchoring me steadily through my highs and lows. Levi, the orange cat, completely oblivious to the impending collapse, but fuck does he go crazy for catnip and banana bread for some fucking reason. Another thing is my newfound church community, which welcomed me with open arms and reminded me that quiet, good people still exist, despite what the terrifying headlines scream. A small community, and yet their radiant love bursts out of the church doors. They don't care about the plan, my autism or my utility. They simply care, and there are people like that in this world. People who simply care. Including you guys, my friends, if I can be a bit gay for a moment, yet again. You guys who watch and care about me, who watch my content even when it's absolute dog shit, helping me feel a little less alone in the dark. Something I've finally come to terms with is that I've always been different, right? And I'm always going to be different. So I might as well roll with the punches. I can take the hardships, the isolation and the pain of not having had the guidance or help I desperately needed growing up, and through the very framework I just laid out, doing it small, doing it alone, and doing it now, I can now choose to be the person I needed back then. I can be the fiercely intelligent, brave older sister. I can be the entertainer, the anchor, the light in the dark. I can be the source of stability in deeply uncertain, dangerous times. And I think you can do it too. I think you can be the person you always needed.